this meeting to order. And the first first item on the agenda are any announcements. Does anybody have announcements to make? All right, I'll make one, and that's that Hillary Smith, who was the commissioner appointed by Katati, has stepped down, and Katati is now in the process of requesting applications to fill that position. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that, and civic-minded people from Katati hopefully will apply, and we can get somebody on board soon. I forget, Commissioner Garcia told me what the cutoff date was, and that's March 14th. Okay, the next item on the agenda is for public appearances. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the Commission regarding items not on the agenda? Please come forward and be recognized. Thank you.
My name's Dorothy Zieber.
I'm sorry, is that microphone on?
I don't know.
Now it is.
Now it is.
Thank you.
All right. My name's Dorothy Zieber, and I use the Northwest branch extensively. And I have 2 requests dealing with the hours that the library is open. I've noticed on numerous frustrating occasions that the library closes early on Saturday, and that on the day before a holiday closure, it closes the last time half a day early. And I'd like to request that the library just be open to the same time every day. I don't care which hour, but the same time, so that you know you can trust that the library will be open. The other thing is something I noticed many years ago when my children were in school. And that is, especially in Santa Rosa, the branches did have late hours, but they were always all on the same night. So that if you suddenly had a child with a project on Tuesday night, you're out of luck. And I wondered if the hours could be staggered so that the Central Library was open one night, Northwest a different, and Rincon Valley a different, something of that sort. And those were my concerns, and I know they're small, but I thought I would bring them to your attention.
Well, Ms. Sieber, thank you very much for your comments, and they're very timely. And I wonder if Director Lear would like to say anything about the hours?
Some of the instances where we've been closed a Saturday before a Monday holiday, when we open on Mondays, those instances should go away. But as far as your staggering hours, that's something that I think is a real possibility right now. We're asking the library advisory boards to hold some community conversations around hours to try to determine, which hours are the best fit for each community. But there's certainly a possibility that you would see staggered hours then, library to library.
Yeah, of course, I'm dealing mostly with Santa Rosa, which has more than one branch. Yep. But I want to make sure I was really clear. I'm not discussing the Saturday closing. I'm discussing the fact that the libraries close at 4 o'clock on Saturday rather than 6, as in all the other days.
Well, again, with the Measure Y funds, which is enabling us to get back some of our lost hours, I think it will, over time, it's not going to happen immediately, but we hope to have the library open longer on a daily basis. So Saturdays are certainly important.
Good.
Thank you very much for your comment. Commissioner Hauser.
Please. The director talked about the library advisory boards, and the idea is we're going to solicit public comment. So I want you to be aware of this when you go into your branch. You usually and look for that, talk to your librarians, and say, when is that going to happen? And I want you to make sure you appear then to say this again, so it's going to be recorded really well, because we're not very good recorders, perhaps.
It's always good to be reminded. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your timely comments. Are there any other members of the public who wish to address the Commission on items not on the agenda? Seeing none. Now we will move into closed session to discuss public employee evaluation, library director, and we will reconvene no earlier than 7 p.m. So thank you very much. We'll be back. We don't have all of the commissioners back, but I think we have a quorum here at the table. And I would like to call this meeting to order, and my apologies to the audience for the delay in restarting our session. The commission met in close. I will call this meeting back to order. So pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.1, the commission met to discuss the director's evaluation, and some direction was given to the director's evaluation committee. So at this time, I wonder if there are any library advisory boards and friends of the library groups who wish to make a presentation to the commission. See none, I've been asked to move some items from item 10, the discussion items, to this place on the agenda. So first, I will ask for item 10.3, the presentation by the Cloverdale branch manager. If you want to come on down and make your presentation, welcome.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is...
Great, thank you.
Now, we're just waiting for the red light on your...
Oh, okay. My name is Stephanie Hope Cochran, and I am the branch manager at the Cloverdale Regional Library. I was hired in September 2016 as we began the refresh process. In order to maintain and continue to provide services to the community, patrons were afforded the opportunity to drop off and pick up items from the temporary site established at the Vets building. On December 20th, 2016, the doors of the Cloverdale Regional Library reopened, renewed, and refreshed with an array of supporters on hand that truly consider the Cloverdale Regional Library as the jewel of the community. That December 20th opening came with an incredible labor force, including staff from the Central Branch, the Hillsburg Branch, the Northwest Branch, Facilities Maintenance, the IT Department, Materials Management Department, the ELT team, and of course, Reese Foxen to complete this yeoman's work. I wanted to share this with you because no one believed we could open the doors on December 20th. If it were not for that staff that heeded the call, it could not and would not have happened. We had every reason to celebrate and honor to have on hand for the occasion the City of Cloverdale Mayor and City Commissioners, friends of the library, members of the executive leadership team, former branch managers, and additional members from the community to reveal the refresh. We are the blueprint for cultural enrichment, promoting lifelong learning, and contributing to social development and continuing to strengthen the thread that runs through the fabric of the Cloverdale community. Beginning with our youngest advocates and extending to our oldest, it is always great to hear from our supporters, so I am happy to share with you this clip.
All the time. Check out some books. And I'm a librarian we love libraries. It's really important to our family to read reading to my children, and to have them have the opportunities to be able to learn and grow in their language skills and their comprehension. So it's really, really important to our family, and we're really thankful for the chance updates and new classes available to us. We really, really appreciate the library.
One of our goals at the Cloverdale Regional Library is to create intergenerational programs. One of our most recent programs proves that learning should not have borders. That parent involved was just as captivated by the experience as the children were. It is priceless to see the expression of the children's faces when they are exposed to the children's area. It is colorful and inviting. Families spend hours in the space browsing through books and utilizing the library as the third space in their lives. Our teen space is an informal learning area. The staff has noted an increase in youth in the building, taking advantage of the bridge we create for the digital divide, allowing them to be strong contenders in the educational development process. We've done this by providing them with a designated space that is attractive, motivating, and encourages connected learning. As a newcomer to the area, I am proud of the community connections established and those yet to come. Richard, one of our patrons, collaborates with me to determine how best to continue providing a bit of local history and local artistry as we showcase it through our displays each month. For the month of February, we featured the elements connected to the Cloverdale Citrus Fair, and the theme was Something Old, Something New, 125 Years with You. The adult space is highly used by local community members and travelers throughout the Cloverdale area. Yet the space is constantly transforming as patrons voice their concerns. Programs are important and serve as an opportunity for cultural enrichment and provide an exceptional recreational outlet for patrons, especially on a rainy day. We have been featured in several articles after our opening, featuring our staff that have promoted databases that we currently have, demonstrating the use of our newest facilities addition, and of course, our most faithful patrons. Our newest IT contribution, the self-checkout machine, is welcomed by the majority of our patrons as they are eager to use it and welcome the challenge of learning something new. And our stats support that. All of this could not happen without the staff. With the passing of the Measure Y, Cloverdale will add 2 library associates, 1 full-time and 1 part-time staff to the existing staff, consisting of Michael, a Tech 2, who's a part-timer, Christine, a Tech 3, who's a part-timer, Kat, Tech 3, full-time, and Kate, the YA and Children's Librarian, full-time. During the refresh, the staff underwent customer service training to provide the best possible user experience as we implemented the single service point of service. Who knew believe that the building in the 1920s would give way to what we know today as Cloverdale Regional Library. Renewed, refreshed, reopened. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was lovely.
Thank you. Are you taking questions? How many of your staff speak Spanish?
Excuse me?
How many staff speak Spanish?
Currently, none of our staff speaks Spanish. Do you speak Spanish? Un poquito. Un poquito, too.
Gracias.
Thank you. De nada.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Lovely. All right. The next item that we're going to have on the agenda is item 10.4, review draft of annual audit for 2015-2016.
Good evening, Commission. I'm Brett Bradford, Audit Manager from, formerly Audit Manager, now Audit Partner from Basseni & Brinker. And this is Kellen Gilbert, Audit Manager from Basseni & Brinker.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So if you want to advance your PowerPoint up right here.
And Kellen's going to take us through our brief presentation. We've got about 8 slides. And then we can answer any questions. You can also interrupt us at any time with any questions that you may have.
Good evening. It's going to be hard to follow up on that awesome presentation. Really cool with all the slides. So as Brett mentioned, my name is Kellen Gilbert. I was the audit manager. Brett is the audit partner, and Kathy Bricker was the audit senior on the engagement. And we'd like to just start real briefly on the roles and responsibilities on the financial statements and the engagement. So management is responsible for all the numbers in the financial statements, the notes, the presentation. We as the auditors were responsible for giving an opinion on whether the financials are free of material misstatements. During the audit, we consider things like inherent risk, the difficulty of transactions, and just the overall possibility of material misstatements occurring, as well as control risk. What are the odds of a material misstatement happening based off of the library's internal controls? Those are the assumptions that we factor into when we set up our test of year-end balances and perform our risk assessments. At that point, we then test transactions, test balances, perform analytical reviews, and do inquiries of the library staff. We also evaluate the adequacy of the disclosures of the financial statements as part of the audit. During the audit, these are the largest areas that we considered. And as people like to point out to us, since we're accountants, that the percentages don't equal 100%. That's because there's some other factors that we couldn't fit in the page, such as deferred outflows and deferred inflows, very exciting things. But these are kind of the bigger areas. Cash and investments, it's a pretty big area. It's very important. But it's pretty easy to audit because of confirmations and being able to verify the amounts with third parties. Revenue recognition and accounts receivable, it's a pretty big part of the audit, making sure that everything that should be captured in the right period is. The financial statements and presentation disclosure, that's a big area. We want to make sure that the financials include everything that they should and that there's no management biases on the disclosures and that they're stated in accordance with GAAP. Accounts payable and other liabilities, again, we want to make sure that all the expenditures are captured into the period that they should be. Okay, moving on. So the result of the audit is that we're going to have a qualified opinion. And what that means is we're stating that the financial statements are free of material misstatement as a whole, with the exception of one item, which we bring to the attention in our opinion, I think it's page 2 of the financial statements, and we'll have a slide to discuss that. I think it's the next slide. Do you want to talk about this?
Sure. So there's one area that we had difficulty getting sufficient evidence to render an opinion on, and this is an area that was mentioned in previous audits with respect to lack of a physical inventory. And the areas on the capital assets that are presented in the financial statements and the related depreciation. So essentially there's two things that led us to this situation. One is the ongoing situation of lack of a physical inventory. And this was, like I said, this was pointed out by the predecessor auditor prior to us. And then the other one is there's some differences in the record keeping between what had been presented in the past and what was currently presented. There was a new system that was also put into place for tracking the cap assets, but that didn't reconcile back as well. So there's some differences there that we were unable to get around. So it's a large number on the balance sheet, but it's probably in the neighborhood of materially being accurate, we could say. But when it came down to it, we couldn't get comfortable enough to include it in our opinion as far as the material accuracy. So what we mean by that primarily is not that capital assets are disappearing or anything like that, but that essentially the ledger tracking those amounts is just not reconciling and rolling forward from previous years. So when you combine that again with the lack of the physical inventory, it led us to this place where we're at. The easiest way for us to move forward and conclude the audit and present it to the commission is to carve it out with this scope limitation. Along with that, there's also noted, you'll notice in the findings in the back, is a material weakness in internal controls around the capital assets as well. So those two kind of go hand in hand in this case.
Could you refer again to what page you were talking about with this information?
It's on the finding.
On the finding.
Is that? So there's two places where we talk about the scope limitation. The first one is in our opinion, and that's on page 1, right after the table of contents. And there's a paragraph at the bottom that says basis for qualified opinion. And that's where we discuss the situation with respect to the cap assets.
I have a question. So,
you should have a English map.
Yeah.
So it's going to be right here. The second page and on the very last page is where
I have a question about how is depreciation handled under GAAP in a public entity as opposed to a private entity, or is there any variation in that?
Essentially, their depreciation is still going to be a function of your estimate of the useful life of the asset and the method you're using to depreciate it. Notice, though, that if you look at the fund financial statements, which are begin on page 11, for governmental funds, there is a modified accrual basis of accounting that's used. Cap assets aren't included there, and for many years, the cap assets were not picked up in the financials until about 12 years ago with GASB 34. So in the fundamental financial statements, which the library uses on a day-to-day basis throughout the year, which is the fund financial statements, to manage the cash inflows and outflows and recognize payables and receivables and such, they're not recognized. Then, if you look at page 9 on the statement of net position, that's where the what they call the government-wide statements begin with those two pages on 9 and 10. And those statements are essentially a consolidation of the fund financial statements and on the full accrual basis of accounting, which you'd find with a normal for-profit business entity or regular not-for-profit, and that's where they're recognized there on the balance sheet. You won't see those on the fund financial statements balance sheets. So I don't know if am I getting at your question?
Thank you.
Yeah. You want to pick it up?
Yeah. So these are just some more informative informations about the audit, and we're required under the standards to present you with this information. So during the audit, there was no fraud, illegal acts, disagreements with management on how to present certain information, or any significant or unusual transactions. So again, these are all good things that we're required to communicate to you, that we did not encounter any of these items. Again, these are required, so it's just a restatement of what Brett just went through, a required communication to those charged with governance that we did find a material weakness as noted in the back of the financials. But again, two more good things. We didn't identify any alternate treatments or accounting principles, any items that we weren't sure how to account for, or we weren't understanding why management took the position that they did. There was nothing of that nature. And we didn't identify any other unusual or items that would need to be required to the board. So, good things.
Those are kind of funky items that the auditing standards require us to communicate to, quote unquote, those charged with governance, the commission in the library's case. And what they're getting at is that were there any opportunities for management to exercise bias through the choice of an alternative accounting treatments or anything like that that could spin the financial statements a certain direction? None of that was identified.
I have a question about the material weakness in internal control, that finding that you had. Do you have any knowledge? Is this common in libraries?
The short answer, no.
Okay, thank you.
No, it's not common. No, we don't have any knowledge.
Thank you.
Along those lines, maybe you could talk a little bit about what you talked about at our finance committee, the reason for this in the county's system, and there's some more reason for this.
Right. Again, historically, the cap assets aren't tracked in the county's regular accounting system, so it's kind of been an off ledger account, and with the voluminous amount of items that would qualify as cap assets that the library has, I think you've tried several different systems over the years, right, and to try to get a handle on this, including the most recent one that was implemented during the year that we were auditing. But we still had some disconnects there. So when you combine it all, it gets us to the place where we're at, unfortunately. And I think that, if you look at the last page, there's a recommendation to do the physical inventory and get the reconciliation done, and management's provided a response there, agreeing to get the physical inventory done by, I think, the end of this fiscal year.
What's the break-off between cap and non-cap?
It is 5,000? Yeah, 5,000, which is a pretty typical threshold. So we can answer any questions about the financials or the finding or our presentation.
I have one additional question, and that is, I see that this is for 2016, but was there any, when I looked at, I think your first slide, the percentages that didn't add up to 100%, a large one of those was revenue management, if I'm not mistaken. And was there any prospective look or suggestions for managing Measure Y funds?
No, yeah, that's a good question, and that's the kind of question we frequently get at these types of presentations. But what we were engaged to do, and what's typical and almost always the case with a financial statement audit, is we're looking in the rear view mirror. We're looking backwards to see if things were measured and presented appropriately. So we tend to not give those type of recommendations unless it's a recommendation that has to do with the recording of the numbers in accordance with GAAP. We tend to stay away from those. And one big reason is that it could potentially impair our independence if we were to give a recommendation on how to proceed with something operationally, and then you did it and, well, you didn't turn out maybe the way we wanted or something like that, and then when we come to audit the numbers next year, oh boy, well, now we were involved in setting some sort of policy that may have an impact on how the numbers looked, so we can't really audit it objectively at that point.
But do you have, within the context of Percenti and Brinker, a part of your firm that would act as a facilitator on helping us to come up to speed?
On the cap assets?
No, not on the cap assets, with our new budgets we've got to deal with. Measure Y in particular.
I would probably have to give a similar type of answer to the last one in terms of independence. If you're talking more of like a consulting type.
It was just a passing idea.
Okay. Well, we could talk about that. It wouldn't be within our firm, but we have some relationships that might be something that you could look at, depending on what it is you're looking for.
Thanks.
I have two questions. One of them is from the document that was in the packet. And it says, it's page 37 of the packet, page 7 of the document, general fund budgetary highlights. And it's saying that, if my addition is correct, that we have $2,325,000 of income that wasn't budgeted. Is that what it's indicating there?
During 2016?
Yes.
Yeah, if you look, even to your point, if you look at page 39 of the document, you'll see there's a budget versus actual for the general fund.
Uh-huh.
And you can see the comparison there. That's page 39 of the document.
So that's a significant.
Right. Property taxes. And you guys
unfilled positions. I read it all. But,
yeah. Right.
Okay, that's the other. And the other is just a specific question. I'm wearing my Petaluma hat here. Mm-hmm. Page 11. I'm wondering, it says in the special revenue funds, it says other funds, and it shows $445,000.
Right. So what that column is, so historically, this is how the library has chosen to present their GAAP financial statements. And generally speaking, GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles for governments, have certain quantitative criteria for breaking out these funds separately. But below a certain quantitative criteria, they get dumped into, all the little ones go into this other funds. So GAP's not going to make you break out, if you have 24 small funds, all of those separately, because that would just be kind of cumbersome and probably not material to the readers of the financial statements. But that's what's in there. It's the aggregate for many funds. And that's something I'm sure Mr. Neiman could provide to you too separately.
That it's not the Cromwell or the Hopkins, but it's the Buffum and okay. All right. That was kind of all right. That's all. The other questions I have aren't for you. They're for Ken.
So. Well, if there are no more questions.
Yeah, I would like a couple. If you could jot down a couple of those recommendations for outside consulting within the context of what I was speaking.
Okay, yeah, I think we want to maybe...
That's all right. I'll just give you my email or something. Or
Okay, perfect.
Great. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's it.
So are you coming to the financial committee next time when we get the final, or is this, we'll get the final in the next commission meeting?
We're going to provide the final next week, I believe, or towards the end of this week. So, and then I suppose you'll be... Ken will present that to you at the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. We weren't planning on coming.
Okay. Shoot. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, were there a couple questions for Ken?
Yes, there were. Ken, I was just, as I went through this, I had, it's not exactly alarms, but questions that popped up. One of them is relation to the fund balance.
Right.
And our fund balance is delineated by percent.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So when we get our new budget, that will include an extra $12 million or so forth. When we're figuring that percentage, are we figuring separately for Y, or is it the overall budget that the fund balance needs to be a percentage of?
It's the overall fund balance.
Okay, in that case, whereas our fund balance seems particularly large at this point, in essence, in terms of perception, the fund balance will shrink in relation to the entire budget. Are you understanding what I'm asking?
It will, exactly. And we've been going through a process with the Finance Committee to narrow that down and redo the fund balance policy. And I think we'll be doing that in May to bring it to the full commission.
Okay, and then my second question had to do with OPEB.
Okay.
And my sense is that we're hiring 33 more people. And so will we be doing another actuarial study and coming up with a new OPEB liability, et cetera, because of the major increase in the staff?
Yeah, we have to get a new actuarial study every 2 years. So I think it will be coming up at the end of 2017, right?
Okay, and if I can just assume, probably it's going to be significantly higher because we now have more people.
Well, not necessarily, because the new people are coming in where they don't qualify as quickly and for as much of retiree health benefits.
Probably will go up a bit. We're still providing some.
Yeah, there is some, but the whole point of changing the qualifications for that was, as we hired new people, it would have the opposite effect and start dropping that down.
Okay. Those are the only two questions that came to my mind.
Anybody else? All right. At this time, I'll ask if any member of the public wishes to comment on any of the items we've discussed to this point. Seeing none, we'll move on to Item 7, Commission and Liaison Reports. The first item is Item 7.1, Commissioner Reports. And while I know that these are highly important, this is one area that the commissioners can control the time involved in this section. So starting down with Commissioner Neff, do you have any report to make?
I'll just pass.
Commissioner Foxen?
Just got together with Angelina and Jane Snibby, head of lab, or president of lab, to get our conversation with the community going and established, which will be April 12th at 6:30 at the library.
Okay. Great. Commissioner, what is your name? May.
Yes, you may. I spoke with City Council on Monday and told them about updated them on Measure Y. It also happened to be a day that we had overflow crowd at the City Council because there was a essentially it's not exactly a safe city rule, but a rule. So there were a lot of people there. And that the city council had no questions. I did inform them of the date of our open meeting with the community conversation about hours.
Sorry, I'm a little tired, so Commissioner Grill. Try to remember everybody's name.
At the last lab meeting, I had a very interesting thing happen. Sean McCaffrey, the mayor of Healdsburg, was sitting next to me, and he leaned over and said, "Can you have your key people get together with me and the city manager, because we'd like to talk about helping out financially in the building of the new facility." Update.
Great. Commissioner Hauser.
I have nothing to report.
Commissioner Garcia.
Sonoma County Foundation, for the Library Foundation, they may be working with us for securing the new Rosa Library.
I have a meeting scheduled before the City Council and with City Council and City Manager for later this month and next month. Commissioner, thank you. Sorry. My mind is...
Though it's noted in the director's report, I will say that Commissioner Garcia and myself appeared before the Santa Rosa City Council and received a proclamation about Santa Rosa Library's 50th anniversary. I attended 2 of the 3, I'm assuming all 3 were fabulous events. The 2 I attended were really great events. And in front of the council, I also thanked them individually and as a city council for their support of Measure Y.
Commissioner McKenzie.
Yes, let's see. I attended the presentation on the architecture, part of the 50th anniversary, and I wanted to just say that it was wonderful. I really thank Catherine Reinhardt for organizing it and whoever else was involved. And I want to say that it completely changed my mind about Central Branch. I look at it completely differently. It was really fantastic. I also went to the Sunday 50th anniversary party, and it was totally fun, upbeat. Snoopy was a big hit, and it was just really upbeat, and I appreciate all the staff who worked on that. It was excellent. I went to the lab meeting on February 21st, and the main thing to know is that a community outreach for Rohnert Park to discuss hours was set for May 17th at 5:30. And the art show, which has been held in Rohnert Park, an alternating art and photography show that's been going on for years. I want to publicly acknowledge 3 people, Faith Adam, Margot Godolphin, and Ann Rasmussen. The 3 of them have carried this whole thing. They're volunteers for years and years, and they're wanting to pass this off into a new generation of people. They were able to find some new people. So without a break, this is going to continue, and the new art exhibit will start March the 7th and run through the 18th, and I will be working a shift as a docent for that, as I've done in the past. I want to acknowledge publicly David Dodd, who I think came to our last meeting, and then since our last meeting has left us to go to Benicia and be the director of that Benicia library. I went to his goodbye dinner party on Friday night and just want to publicly acknowledge him for the great job he did. I was on the lab when David was the interim director, he and Jamie, and holding things together really well, and then he recruited me to work on the Measure M committee. Got involved in the sales tax, and then here I am. So anyway, lots going on in the library. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Heavenridge.
Wow, I live a boring life compared to you. I have nothing to report. The Guerneville lab did not meet last month, but I believe it's going to be this month. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. And now we move on to item 7.2, committee and liaison reports. The first one is 7.2.1, director evaluation. We met this afternoon and we had a closed session with the commission this evening. And I just want to report that we have the draft 360 evaluation procedure handed out to all the commissioners asking for input, and we hope to have those completed and sent out to people for their input late next week. So moving on to 7.2.2, the Finance Committee.
Yes, the Finance Committee met twice in February. We had so much to work on, so we met on February 13th and also February 27th. All commissioners were there, and the director and the CFO were present at both meetings. We had no public appearances at either meeting. At the February 13th meeting, we were scheduled to discuss the library possibly functioning as a fiscal agent for the Roseland Coalition as they raise funds for a permanent building in Roseland. Pat Kuda and Dan Jenkins from the coalition came to our Finance Committee meeting to talk to us. However, earlier that day, they had met with the director and the CFO and reached the conclusion collectively that no additional fiscal arrangement really needed to be necessary. Funds can be raised by the group, and checks and grants can be made to the Sonoma County Library. They will be deposited in a separate fund. The Roseland Coalition is actively seeking funds from various sources and hopes to raise $3 to $4 million. Some additional operational details were discussed in our meeting. I won't go into detail about that, but this issue seems to be satisfactorily resolved. We reviewed a revised fund balance analysis based on the income that's going to be coming into the library from the sales tax measure, and we were in basic agreement with it. And a formal revised policy statement, as Ken mentioned earlier, will be discussed at our May Finance Committee meeting. We discussed getting commissioner input from into both the budget process and the expenditure of Measure Y funds. Staff pointed out that the expenditure of Measure Y funds is spelled out in the expenditure plan and also tracks the strategic plan. There was interest in more detail and specificity. One suggestion from the Finance Committee that the Commission hear from department heads at the budget workshop with some detail on their department changes ahead and so forth has been adopted by staff and will be part of our April budget workshop and meeting. I think they'll be helpful and illuminating for all of us. There was unanimous support on the Finance Committee to support the budget adjustment items that are on our agenda tonight. One was discussed February 13th and one on February 27th. At the February 27th meeting, the January monthly financial reports were reviewed and discussed. Nothing exceptional to report about that. And then we reviewed the draft audit. We spent well over an hour with the auditors, from new auditors from Pacini and Brinker, and they were present to answer our questions. We went over a lot of small details, and the draft we have tonight is different than the draft we looked at, but there's no difference in the numbers, just a lot of kind of fine-tuning of some of the details. We had a good discussion. We felt the auditors really stepped in a good job. They were easy to work with from our standpoint. And we were only concerned a little bit that's getting kind of late in the year to get this draft, but there were lots of reasons for that. There was sickness, and it was new people and so forth, so we expect it to be earlier next year. Almost done. We had a brief discussion regarding the expenses for the Commission retreat and workshop on March 25th, and it was pointed out that we do have sufficient funds in the budget for these very limited expenses, so we expect those funds to come out of the library budget instead of private foundation, I guess, that paid for it the last time. And a draft of some of the protocols for the OPEB action plan were handed out, and it was decided to carry this item forward one more month to give everyone a chance to read and comment the protocols for the Measure Y Oversight Committee, also being carried forward to the next Finance Committee meeting, which will be held on Monday, March 20th at 3 p.m. in the conference room. Thank you very much.
Wow. Okay. Thank you very much, Barbara. It's very complete. So now 7.2.3, Advocacy, Commissioner Foxon.
We met on February 27th, and Angelina reported the conversations within the communities have been arranged for most of the libraries.
Is your microphone?
Oh, it would be nice if I turned it on. Sorry. Angelina reported that the conversations with the communities has been arranged for about 90% of the libraries, and the labs have been asked to do outreach into the community to draw people in beyond the usual customers, hoping to reach a diverse representation from the communities. We also discussed more around the status of the labs and the foundation, which has a new president now, Scott Alonso. We continued the discussion of commissioner presentations to their appointing bodies, and I have a question to ask. How many people have been before their appointing body since the election? Okay, thank you. Gives me an idea what we're dealing with. We began kind of developing a list of talking points in case it might be of help to you, and working at creating an elevator speech. I do have a short PowerPoint that can be used. If you would like to have access to it, I'll give it to Jane, and you can ask her for it. Again, it's talking about Measure Y and the expenditure issues with it and what we're going to do with the money. We also began talking about developing talking points for other city officials like city managers, because when you talk to a council person, it's different than when you're talking to a city manager. So we hope that we can begin to help everybody get some ideas of what they can say and how they can say it to some of these different people and entities. Now, the state budget has been put forward with little change from the last year. Is totaling just short of $14 million for the public libraries in the state of California. And Angelina wrote a beautiful letter in support of the budget. But we need to get a couple of things straightened out before we can send it off. In the meantime, I think all of you remember Deborah Doyle from last month came before us and talked about the SCA 3, which is the Senate Constitutional Amendment number 3 that has been written by Bill Dodd from Senate District 3, which is part of Sonoma County, or Sonoma County is part of his district. And it's been co-authored by Mike McGuire, who's also within our county, and then Bob Weiskowski, who's down by Fremont. The amendment gives the public libraries access to a bonding process with voters' approval of 55%. I think all of you probably know that schools can get capital improvements with a 55% vote, and this puts the libraries in that same bill as an amendment to it, an addition to it. So I think that will help us immensely. When we were looking at the revenue enhancement stuff, before Measure Y was done, we looked at that tax, and I just automatically eliminated because I realized it was capital improvement, and we were looking for operating expenses. What I didn't realize at the time is we couldn't have even done it anyway because libraries and special districts weren't included in it at that time. And this is what Bill Dodd is trying to do. He's doing it specifically for public libraries and special districts, and enabling cities or counties or cities and counties, or like I say, special district, which is what we are, JPA, to put forth a measure that could provide the bonding for capital improvements. So I drafted a letter, and I've given each of you a copy of it because it's easier to do it that way. But it says, Dear Senator McGuire, he happens to be the chair of the Governance and Finance Committee, which is going to be the first committee to hear about the bill, which is happening on the 29th of March. And Tim and I are going to drive down to Sacramento to be at that meeting, so they have a face sitting there in front of them. Okay, so on behalf of Sonoma County Library, we're asking for your support of Senate Constitutional Amendment number 3, authored by Senator Bill Dodd. This amendment would make it possible for a city and county, or special district to incur bonded indebtedness to fund construction, reconstruction, rehabilitation, or replacement of library facilities. It would also include furnishings and equipment, as well as the acquisition or leasing of real property for public library facilities. Recently, the voters in Sonoma County supported our efforts by passing a sales tax that we applied to operating expenses of the library, enabling us to expand hours by opening Mondays, additional evenings, weekends, upgrade our broadband access, increase adult literacy services, job search, and resume building, and to diversify our programs and classes for teens, children, adults, and seniors. The Senate Constitutional Amendment number 3 will give our joint powers agreement partners a mechanism to fund major repairs as well as a potential means to build a library in a much ignored area of our county. The additional consideration of 55% rather than a supermajority voter approval eases constraints faced in the ballot measure process. Libraries contribute on many levels to a communities, its residents, and the state at large. The economic return on investment alone equals between $3.50 and $5.70 for every $1 invested in a library through employment and wage contributions, purchasing supplies and materials, taxes, contracted services, and increased business traffic. Without the passage of this amendment enabling mechanisms for library systems to gain funding addressing critical deferred maintenance and growth issues, communities will lose vital contributions to its well-being. We thank you for your support of SCA 3 and for recognizing the public library as a valuable asset to the community. So this is a letter we're going to send off to each member of the Governance and Finance Committee, unless there's some major objection to it. So anyway, yeah.
I think it was.
I totally approve. It's a great bit of advocacy on behalf of all the libraries in our state. So thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think we need to begin to get a face out there. And we need to keep working on our base here in Sonoma County, but we also need to get a face out there. And I think this is a good start. So thank you.
Thank you, Reese. Very complete. Commissioner Garcia, I was going to call you Senator. Commissioner Garcia on the Foundation Liaison report.
In regards to Rosa, we will be meeting Friday afternoon. We are meeting with Supervisor Linda Hopkins on the 16th in the afternoon. And the Foundation is supporting us in our efforts when it comes to Rosa. And the Foundation meets again on March 15th.
Could I ask you a question? Could you bring me up to speed on the new Foundation president? Just a thumbnail sketch.
It is no longer Alex Anderson. It's Scott Alonzo is the new president. And some people have resigned from the board.
Yeah.
And they no longer have a director. A paid director, but they still have the space over a couple of blocks away.
And Scott's from Petaluma, and he was active in Measure Y campaign.
Okay. The 7.2.5, the ad hoc OPEB retirement, is still in progress. It was discussed briefly at the Finance Committee, but I believe is it going to be on the next agenda? Yes. And when is that next meeting? Okay, and okay, great. And 7.2.6, the Standard Operating Procedures Committee needs to set an additional meeting. We talked about having them every 2 weeks, and then we got off track again. So we will do that.
May I make a quick suggestion about the agenda? Would it be possible in the future for the SOP committee to be labeled the ad hoc SOP committee so that we can indicate that it's an ad hoc committee and not a standing committee?
Yes, it should be the ad hoc SOP committee. Thank you. Let's see, any comments about items that we've discussed to this point? All right, seeing no comments. Move on to the consent calendar.
I have just a question, and that is about September 15th is a Friday. Kids will be back in school. Is there any way, rather than closing you feel that that's the best day to close all day? Obviously, otherwise you wouldn't put it here.
Wait a second. We're on the minutes that are on the consent calendar.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were on
the calendar's on the consent calendar, too.
The calendar's on this consent calendar.
Oh, okay. All right. So you want to pull off the schedule and put it down in the discussion items? Okay.
It would be an action item, not a discussion.
Okay. Thank you. So,
I'm getting tired.
I know, me too. So, as to item 9.1 on this consent calendar, the regular meeting minutes from February 6th, if there are no objections, we will approve them. Those are approved. And then down to the discussion item, we have 10.1, the director's report. Director Lear?
Sure. I'll be pretty quick. 3 things I wanted to mention. One is the item on the agenda tonight for opening on Mondays from April to May. I feel as if staff have done a wonderful job with the recruitment. We've finished interviews. We're starting to check references. We're about ready to make offers. But I just feel that since we're already into March, the likelihood of getting people recruited, letting people resign from the jobs they have now, get here and get folks trained, it seems like the beginning of April is too tight of a window now to open on Mondays. So I'd like us to push that back to May, and that is on the agenda tonight.
So that is item 11.1?
Correct.
Okay.
Additionally, just really continue to work with Ken and other senior management around the budget. I think one thing you'll see in the budget workshops is, in addition to money that staff will allocate into the budget for Measure Y for more books and hours and computers and that, we've done a good job of recruiting the 30-plus frontline staff in order to open on Mondays, but what you'll see in the budget coming forward is what we really need to do now is recruit some support staff to do the things like buy the books and deliver the books around, and perhaps put some more staffers in the business office and in IT and HR and that, in order for us to be able to support all of these new things that we're doing. And then lastly, I just want to welcome our new HR manager, Suzanne Silva, and see if she wants to introduce herself.
Good evening. I'd just like to, introduce myself. I'm Suzanne Silva, and I think that you had an opportunity maybe to read a little about me in some document. Is that true? No? Well, I'm from Santa Cruz Metro, but I'm originally a resident of Lake County, so it's like coming back home again. And so I'm really excited to be here and help with the onboarding and recruiting of staff, and putting some policies in place and working with the branch managers and just helping put our Measure Y funds and beyond to good use to make the library system even better than it already is. So I really look forward to having the opportunity to talk with you all at some point earlier, maybe in the day, and so I look forward to talking with you all. Thank you.
Great. Welcome.
That's it for me.
Okay. Okay. Commissioner Hauser?
Concerning the community conversations that's being scheduled there, are we going to see what the questions are? What are we covering? I don't know what's being covered in this conversation. I know I pushed for the discussion about the hours. What else is being covered?
I know that Angelina's asked to meet with individuals from each of the labs, and they're working together on those questions and how the process will work. So that's my understanding of how those conversations are being formatted, is with Angelina working directly with members of each of the labs.
Are they going to be different or uniform throughout the system?
I don't know. My understanding,
okay.
I'm not
fine.
sure. Yeah.
Are we going to get a report from Angelina before this actually goes out, whatever way?
I'm happy to have Angelina share with the commission what she's coming up with. Yes.
Thank you.
I have a question for the director. And I just want to be clear that until otherwise noted, that the director has responsibility for all ADA, Americans with Disability Act's responsibility.
That's correct. Right now I am the ADA coordinator, and I'm also working with Suzanne Silva to develop an ADA policy or procedure that should be done soon as well.
I have some questions. First of all, I'd like to comment on, Brett, thank you for everything that's happening. It's astounding and delightful and wonderful to watch our library spread its wings. And
thank you.
Thank you. I have some questions about the timeline for the opening of the Rohnert Park facility. The move.
The building for the materials.
It says, I'm on the monthly management
Okay,
report.
so the moving some of the central folks offsite.
Yeah, right.
I was thinking about the library for a second,
No.
and nothing was ringing a bell.
No. Timeline, Ken?
Ken's better at the specifics on that.
Yes, right now we're still negotiating with the owner for the terms of lease and the tenant improvements and everything. Hopefully we can get that settled, and the lease would have to come to the commission for approval before we could really start moving forward on the tenant improvements and everything. We're hopeful to have that at the April meeting. Otherwise, that'll just push it out even further, but we hope to have it then, and then it'll take probably 60 to 90 days to get the improvements in place and the furniture ordered that we'll need to have for that.
Who's the landlord?
I don't know. I can't recall his name. We're working with Keegan and Copen, the leasing agent.
Thanks.
And then there will be plans for doing things downstairs.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Brett, I was wondering, what kind of attendance are you getting at the director's
They just vary. The last couple, probably 7 to 10, and then I've had one time in either Cloverdale or Healdsburg, I had 50, and I've also had 0. So
it's a lot of coffee.
Pardon?
That's a lot of coffee. Okay, the other question I had is kind of related to now Mayor McKenzie speaking after Measure Y, speaking to the commission about getting on the agenda for the mayor's meeting. How's that going?
I've been working with Jake McKenzie as kind of my connection to that group, and I talked to him maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he said that it's in process, so I don't have a date yet.
Okay, I just didn't want it to drop off the table. Okay.
And I'll be attending that meeting too.
Great. Have fun.
Thank you.
If nobody else has more questions about the management report, I have a couple more.
Well, I have one.
Okay.
Mine's more congratulations to you and Keo for the work you've done with the DIY kit. I think it's really great. I think it's good for the community. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And the partners have been really great to work with on that too. So thank you.
I have a question regarding the, this is probably a Keo question or your question, but the choosing of programs for particularly the different sites. And I'm wondering if there's any move or thought of checking with the labs about what programs they might see that they may want for their buildings. Has that come up as a possibility?
I don't know that Chris right now directly works with the labs, does she, Keo? I don't believe so. As far as my level of involvement, I know that I've seen, for example, where Sebastopol's lab does a nice job of working with Matthew on setting some goals in that for the year, and I recommended to the Santa Rosa lab that they think about that, and they're starting to work that way. So it's possible maybe for Chris to reach out, but I think another way would just be for the labs to be encouraged by their branch managers to share ideas around events.
Or their commissioners. Okay, and then the other thing, just as a quick one, on page 22 of the packet, this is new, and this list of books, of possible books, I found really neat to get. So whoever did that, thank you, to have a list of possible books to explore. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
You have something, Barbara? Did you have something to... No?
I did. I wanted to congratulate Brad on getting his MBA.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Congratulations, and thanks to all the staff for all that they've been doing. Some of you look quite blurry-eyed these days, and I know that you are putting in a lot of time to get all of this done. I did want to particularly call out this the books also for the community-wide read. I like that partnership. Sounds really great, and it looks like a great book that they've picked out for all of us to read, and I will encourage my book groups to do that. Any other comments or questions about this report, or shall we move on to the monthly financial report?
Hi, is this on?
Mm-hmm. Now it is.
All right. It starts on page 24. As Commissioner McKenzie said, we went over this at the Finance Committee, and there was really nothing of significant to report. There was in the first sentence on page 24, there's a word change that should happen. The cash balance actually went down from December instead of up. Yeah, unless someone has any questions, there's really, again, nothing of significance to discuss here.
Wonder who has a question. I do.
All right.
I know. I saw your hand up. I was like, oh, okay.
Page 27, the expenses.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that the commission and lab expenses, we have 94% of the money still left. And essentially, I'm wondering, are the labs using their money?
No.
And otherwise, the expenses are reimbursement for travel.
Correct.
And then the retreat. But basically, the labs have not availed themselves of their money.
Right. There's been some discussion. I sat in at one lab meeting with Angelina about with these upcoming meetings, community meetings, to use some of the money though to, provide cookies or something like that. So I suspect they'll be using that in the next few months.
Okay.
Or some of it.
All right. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Yeah, some place along the line we talked about, some of the labs and friends have done outreach at farmers markets, and I thought somebody was, probably Angelina, working on some sort of consistency for those kinds of community outreach things. And if that comes together, I'm sure the money will be spent for prizes and spinning wheels and things like that. But I don't know where we are with that right now.
And we're 15.
I'm not sure.
Okay. No more questions? Thank you very much, Ken. And that takes us down to where? Let's see. Okay, so we're down to action items by motion. I think you're back up. Okay. We could take 9.2 first since we moved it down. And that is approve proposal to reschedule all staff day from April 27th to September 15th, 2017. Commissioner Garcia, you had a question?
I have a question and a comment about, in the past when you've looked at the day in April, and I fully support your idea of it'll be confusing to the public being open on Mondays and all that stuff. I understand that part. The problem I have is The September date, that's a Friday date? Is that it? Yeah. And is that a low use date?
I mean, I can tell you that I asked Keo to look at this in depth. We had Angelina, put thought into it. So, staff have been pretty thoughtful about this date. Keo, do you have specific stats about Fridays versus other days of the week that you want to share?
It's a Thursday or Friday?
Oh, it's a Thursday.
September 15th, and this thing says Friday.
Whatever day it is.
September 15th is a Friday.
Hello. Traditionally, Friday is a low-use day. It is as such that most of our staff meetings are scheduled, have been. We will change with the Monday opening. Friday situation may change, but it is a low-use day. And then Saturday, then people will come back.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions or comments about this item 9.2? If not, do I have a motion? All right. Any other discussion or comments from the public? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh. So Tom made the motion and Paul Grill seconded. Okay. So thank you. And now we're at item 11.1, discuss with possible action to change public service hours, one document. This is the proposal to move the opening of the new public service hours from April to May. Is that right? Okay. From April 1st to May 3rd?
April 3rd to May 1st.
Oh, I had it just backwards.
Yep. As Brett mentioned before, I think it was part of his report, after we looked at this, just the timing of everything and getting the employees needed in here by the 3rd of April didn't seem like it was going to work out like we had hoped. So we're bringing this to you to approve the hours starting May 1st.
Great. Do I have a motion?
I move.
I second.
Okay, so Tim May and Paul Heavenridge. Any discussion?
I want to comment that I certainly encouraged as soon as possible, and lo and behold, I found out that I encouraged too much activity too quickly, and it's not possible. The staff just they're ready to die trying to make it happen, and I support this fully.
All right, any other comments?
I was wondering how it will be noted to the public, because there has been sort of a sense that it would be April 1st. So will there be a rollout?
Yes, do we have a public...
Well, I've been purposely not being very specific with the press and the public I speak to because I wasn't entirely sure we could pull off April. So I think, I'm talking to Q almost daily about this. I think as soon as I hear from her that she's really, really confident now that we can, do May, then we can start looking at a press release in that. But we haven't done any press releases yet from the library that have been specific about an opening date, but now we can do that.
Okay.
And also, in the Press Democrat, the little advertisement with the two little boys, it'd be a good idea to change that, or as soon as you know, to put that date in.
All right, any other comments? Barbara?
Just wanted to comment, and again, thank all the staff for all the incredible amount of planning that's gone into this, and also the staff that's been involved in the interview process, trying to keep everything going and add all this rest. It's been a lot, and so I appreciate it, and I know we all do.
Yes, okay. Yes, absolutely. I applaud all of you. I know this always takes so much longer than you want it to or than it's possible to complete. So kudos to all of you for your hard work. So we have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay. Unanimous. I always forget to do that opposed. All right. So now we are down to item 11.2, the budget adjustment. Do I have a motion? We'll have a motion.
I move.
Second.
So that's Paul Heaven-Ridge and Barbara McKenzie seconding. Any discussion or questions? Or
I was wondering about is Central the only library that has security services, per se?
Yes, on a regular basis. We also have, in the mornings up at Northwest, we have a company sweep through there in the mornings before the libraries are open there and at Central. But on a daily basis, inside the library, Central is the only one with security.
Okay, thank you.
any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, I call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So we have a unanimous vote. And that takes us down to, I think that was our last item on the agenda. Are there items to include in commission notes?
The retreat on March 25th.
Okay, and it will be at a place to be announced at Sonoma State University Library.
Okay, so that should be one of them. And the second one, that the Monday openings will happen now, are delayed.
Wait, say that again? I didn't quite catch it. What did you say?
The delay in Monday openings.
Okay.
Should you say anything? If they're delayed, I think we should say.
Also, that might be a place to reiterate the community meetings about future hours.
And I don't like the word delayed.
I know, we could come up with a better
Yeah,
word.
I think we can
Another
announce
word,
that it'll be.
But we've been talking about April,
Yeah.
whatever word you want to come up with, but
Yeah.
now we need them to know that it's not going to be April.
Well, why don't we just say it'll be starting May 1st?
If that's the date.
What we can say is we approved opening on May 1st.
There you go. I like that.
And then that's the action we've taken.
And what was the other item somebody just suggested?
The community meetings.
Oh, right.
I think it'd be important for the city councils and so forth to know about that.
I think our advocacy of SCA 3.
Again, yeah. SCA reading advocacy. Speak up.
The SCA 3, we never took an action as a commission about that. It wasn't on the agenda, so we can't do that. So you have to be careful what you're phrasing. You can say that the advocacy committee is taking a position or something.
Or that we
I can't remember who I asked, but they said we could send a letter from the commission without necessarily having the commission approve it. And we have to have this there by March 20th.
Well,
I'm not saying that you can't send a letter.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying when you're reporting this, you can't say that the library commission took a position.
Oh,
Because
okay.
we
I'm
didn't
sorry.
take a
I misunderstood you. It's getting
Certainly,
too late for me.
The chair of our commission can take a position on our behalf, and that's fine.
Okay, so are there agenda items for future commission meetings?
Is it too late for the notes?
No.
For notes, I would add the thing about the book that's being selected for community reads.
Good idea. Okay, David, did you have something?
Is it too early to talk about the Measure Y Oversight Committee?
In the community notes?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Now I moved on to the agenda.
To the next. Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, I don't think so. I think it's time because I think it should be on the next agenda. The Finance Committee is going to look at the process at the next meeting this month, and so it should be on the April agenda, definitely, for the Commission to adopt. Okay. I'd like to propose on the next agenda that we have an item adjourning the next meeting in honor of David Dodd, for the work that he gave to the library. So we'll work with some people to write that up. Okay. Any other items for the next agenda? Okay, so our next meeting is our fiscal year 2017-2018 Planning and Budget Workshop and regular meeting, and it will be held Monday, April 3rd at 2 p.m. here in these chambers. And now we will adjourn by acclamation. It is 9:14. We're slightly later than we wanted, but